Well, obviously, a lot of anger in the streets of France today, but also the debates are continuing in the French Parliament. And to draw a parallel between all of that, let's bring in our French politics editor, Mark Proman. Mark, how important are these debates going on in Parliament on this huge strike day?
Well, obviously, legally, formally, they are very important because the law is voted in Parliament and not on the streets. So the Senate is currently debating after very controversial debates at the National Assembly a couple of weeks ago. The Senate, very symbolically, is likely to vote on Article 7 of the law, of the bill. The Article 7 would push back the retirement age from 62 to 64. So this is progressing. Then it should go back to the National Assembly. There's no guarantee that it will be voted, but it's a parallel, but it's nearly schizophrenic, if you want, because yes, formally, the Senate, National Assembly will debate and then eventually vote. But this will be decided on the streets. Let's face it, it's the sixth day of strikes, demonstration, and the unions are very, very united. And this is unlikely. We haven't seen this in the past decade. So they made a pause during essentially the holidays, winter holidays, and now they've decided that this week, today is only the beginning for them. They've said that the strikes would most likely be reconducted, that they would try to block different actions and try to bring the economy to its knees, as one of the union leaders said. So clearly there's a lot of pressure today that we're going to see maybe record numbers of people on the streets. The unions are hoping that they'll be able to get maybe 2 million people on the streets, which would be the biggest mobilization in years. We'll probably have a war of numbers because the police will say it's less and so on. But the answer is not really today. It's what happens tomorrow and in the coming days, because in previous movements against pension reforms, the government has been forced to backtrack after weeks of strikes and demonstration. So today, yes, it's important, but what happens next will be decisive.
Well, I guess that's the real question. I mean, how likely is it, do you think, that French President Emmanuel Macron will blink at some point?
Well, according to his advisors, there's no chance that he will blink. He has remained quite distant from this debate. He's been asked here and there, but he has not formally spoken. He has sent his prime minister to essentially deal with the issue. Elisabeth Borne, she was yesterday again on TV saying, we need this reform because the system will collapse financially if we don't ask people to work longer, because if not, there will be no financial balance by 2030. But clearly, the people on the streets, the union leaders are saying, it all depends on one person, Emmanuel Macron. He eventually will need to decide. And Emmanuel Macron has always said, I'm a reformer. I'm not the kind of person who blinks. But let's remember, during his first mandate, he initiated reform of the pension system, a different reform, but people forgot because it was stopped by COVID. But there were weeks of very, very strong strikes and demonstration against a reform that was less controversial and that was also supported by one of the key unions, the CFDT. Today, the CFDT is on the streets. And so this is a much, much more difficult task for Emmanuel Macron. So we'll see. Yes, his advisors say, no way he will back down. The retirement age will be 64 and not 62. But let's wait, because if there is a strong paralysis, he might have to make some concessions at some point and throw his own hat into the ring.
Okay, Mark, thanks for that. France 24's French politics editor, Mark Proman.